Hello, and welcome back to our Home Sweet Healthy Homes podcast. Super excited to be here today. And even more exciting, we do have a special guest. We have Damien Otar here, the community liaison. Hello, Damien. How are you?
Hi, Kate. Thank you. I'm well, thanks. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, thanks for kind of being here and hanging out with us. Can you explain a little bit about yourself, a little bit about your role?
So, again, you said my name is Damien Otar. I'm a Quincy resident. I've lived here for about 25 years.
Wow.
I'm originally from Jamaica. I've worked in the role of community liaison since its inception, June 5th of last year. So we just came upon 1 year, and I'm having a lot of fun with it. It's very exciting. Has me traveling around the city. I'm learning a lot about the city, and most importantly, it's serving the public. And that is something that as we talk more throughout this podcast, you'll learn a lot about why it's such a big deal to me.
Yeah, so you have a pretty exciting position here at the city. So it just was created last year. So you're kind of in that first stages of, your position and kind of where you want to take this role, because there's so many different paths and ways you could go through with it. So how do you like it so far? You said it's a lot of fun. You're traveling to all these different places. What are some things you're learning about?
Well, a lot about just Quincy and the history and the richness of the history. Quincy, known as the City of Presidents, there are just so many things that has happened here that has been consequential to the development, the growth and development of the nation as a whole. And that is one piece of fact that makes me feel proud to live here. I'm learning a lot about the governmental structure here, various services that are offered here. And in my previous work, I've had to interface with many other South Shore communities, the Metro Boston area in general. And I tell people all the time that it makes me really proud to live here. Quincy has so much going for it. And I know we're coming up on the 400-year celebration next year as a city. And the direction in which it's going, it's just amazing. And I'm happy to be not just along for the ride, but I'm contributing to the evolution of the city. And that's also pretty exciting.
Yeah, as someone who's grown up in Quincy my whole life as well, it's been nice to see the evolution of the city for the good, and seeing how it's changed over the years. I know sometimes in the office we'll look back at old photos of past photos of Quincy, in the 1950s, 2000s, and so on, and it's always crazy to see how much we've changed, and excited to see how much we're going to change in the next 50 to 100 years. So as you're going through the day-to-day of your job, what do you do? Like, you said you're constantly visiting the community. What does a little day-to-day look like?
So it really depends, right? Because I spend a lot of time doing a lot of community outreach, also community inreach. And for a lot of folks, so my background is in community mental health and social services. And there's a distinction between community outreach and inreach. Outreach is what a lot of organizations do by putting a lot of information out, posting it on their website. Inreach is when you physically go into the spaces and build relationships, and that takes time. And so throughout the course of the past year, I've spent a lot of time doing that. I've heard it said over the years living here that Quincy, we have 6 different wards, and each ward or each even sort of sub community group within each ward, it has its own unique culture. And when you're trying to build alliances with individuals and groups, can't do that from a distance. You have to go into the spaces, be it, whether it's a community group, whether even if it's a place of worship, just visiting people in their natural spaces and introducing yourself and getting to know them. That is really important in this role, because trust is a very important factor. We live in a very divisive time right now. All you have to do is to turn on your television, and people establish their alliances. So they either like a particular government or a person in government, or they don't like that person. And so there's just this natural inherent mistrust. And so if you're someone that is going to be speaking to people within the context of government services, a lot of folks already begin by sort of starting off not trusting what you have to say. So in order to address that part effectively, people are much more receptive if they've gotten to know you, and so now you're presenting information to them versus just coming out and they've never even seen you before and presenting information to them. They tend to be a lot more skeptical, even if it is something that's going to be helpful to them. On top of that, there are also other complex challenges that a person may be experiencing. We see the rise of, or some people may say it's not necessarily the rise of, mental health challenges, because it was always there, but it's now much more on full display. And that's one of the barriers that's really affecting how people take in information and how they process that information. And so, as I mentioned earlier, I do have a mental health background. I've provided community-based mental health services. So I've taken that into account in terms of how I reach out in the community and connect with people. So that's taking me literally all over the city, all 6 wards. It's really very interesting, and I'm enjoying every moment of it. I'm a people person. I like to meet people and learn about them and share a bit about myself with them as well. And so a significant part of this job entails that.
Yeah, and so as you're mentioning, you need to gain the trust of the community and the public. How do you go about gaining someone's trust? Like you said, right when you meet someone, they're a little guarded. How do you go about fostering that trust within the different community groups, different citizens?
Being genuine is something that I have found throughout my life, both personal and professional life. If you truly believe the things that you're saying to people, they can sense it. People oftentimes can sort of spot someone who's kind of faking it. But if you really, and that's another thing about this job that I really like, it really, I'm doing the things that I truly believe in and the things that I really like. And one of the things with me, I'm oftentimes or sometimes criticized of sort of being naive, but I'm not naive at all. I really believe that the vast majority of people just want good things. And the vast majority of people are not bad. I just think that sometimes people are misinformed, and we have a lot going on in our society right now, and it kind of stimulates the worst in us, because I do believe that we're all capable of good and we're all capable of bad. And I just think that people are just in a spot right now where the stress level is really, really high, and they're just quick to kind of move from 0 to 100. And so because I truly believe that, when I meet people, even if they're at their most anxious moments, let's use that adjective, anxious moments, I think that because I present this level of calm and sort of collectedness in terms of how I'm listening to them, and I'm also very attentive in my listening. So you talk about how do I kind of initially build that trust? Well, it starts by listening, and listening in a very attentive and intentional listening, because people can also pick up when you're just listening as part of a process versus really listening to understand where they're coming from. And so once you do that in a very genuine way, then people kind of, I'm sure you've met people in your life or heard people say, there's just something about that person that just strikes me as really genuine. They're just so easy to talk with. Exactly. It's because they exude that kind of energy, right? And so this job has me just really operating from a very authentic self. And so there's no sort of pretense in what I'm doing and how I'm doing it. That has really taken me into spaces where people have been opening up and they have been talking with me. And I really like that.
And I'm sure, as you mentioned, you pop around the city a lot. I'm sure by you constantly being there and I'm here to help, I'm ready, let me know, that kind of brings back to what you're saying earlier, that, you really believe in this work and you're there to help the community and serve them with their needs, whatever it may be, which is really cool to know that we have someone like that here in the city that are strictly for the citizens and just to find what they're looking for.
And I also try to be very responsive. So all the respective departments with whom I've worked, or have established a sense of collaboration, they know how to reach me quickly. And if there is a situation with a constituent that they need me, they can reach me immediately. And I'm typically available to meet with that resident within 24 to 48 hours, depending on what the situation is.
Yeah.
So it's just also being agile and being able to literally respond to a situation. Recently, there was an incident with the health department, and there was a person that they really wanted to go out and meet because there were some issues and some complaints, and there was a suspicion that my service could be helpful. Let's put it that way. And they reached out to me. I was able to meet up with them the same day, and we both went together on site. And while there, I was able to determine that there were some other needs, and so that is somebody that I'm working with now to try to make connection between that resident and other services throughout the city. So even though the original issue that the health department was responding to was just that one single issue, but by my being there with them, we were able to ascertain that there were some other needs. So it's kind of a solving multiple issues with just one call.
Yeah, definitely.
That's one example of how it works.
Yeah, of course. So since you've been in this role for a year, what are some challenges you've noticed, or maybe some strengths you realize that through this job you're finding out that you have throughout your time?
Well, organization and planning is definitely an asset in this role because it is a one-man department.
Yes.
However, I must say one of the biggest assets that this city has is its people. And particularly in my role, the various department heads and employees, because they do such a good job. So it makes my ability to do what I need to do that much easier and much more seamless. So for instance, like I said, I mentioned the health department or even constituent services. They are very, very good at, if there's an incident or there's an issue that's kind of percolating, they reach out to me right away, and they understand my role well enough that they know the pertinent information to provide me with. So I'm not like playing phone tags, or we're not spending a long period of time for me to get the full picture. With one email or one phone call, I'm getting all that I need, so I can sort of grab the baton and run with that. And there have been several instances where that has been the case. That's the one of the biggest assets in this role. In terms of challenges, to be honest, and I know this may sound surprising, but I really haven't hit any challenge that I would speak to are just inherent challenges. Yeah. There are lots of people out there who are having a hard time, and I think that's the hardest. That's the biggest challenge in terms of just having to witness it and kind of go through the challenges with them and just to see people suffer. It's something, and this is probably more on the personal side to me, which is why I went into mental health. It breaks my heart to see people struggle. Having to compartmentalize and manage that in my own sort of personal world, I would say is the biggest challenge. But, I've been working in this space of community service for over about 25 years. So I've learned how to put the appropriate guardrails in place to maintain my own sort of mental health while being out there to support others. But again, I must say kudos to the city and the leadership here and all the various departments that I've worked with, because everybody's doing their job and doing it so well. It makes it much more doable for me as one person. Yeah, definitely.
You mentioned that you've worked with the health department, Situate Services. Is there any other stakeholders, nonprofits, or I guess groups that you've worked with heavily throughout the city that you'd like to mention here?
Sure, there are quite a number so within the course of my first year, and I'm still doing it right now, because one of the things with community work is that your outreach, inreach never stops. So you're constantly reaching out to agencies and stakeholders and departments. And sometimes there are some stakeholders that you may never actively do any work with, but it's important that you maintain a presence of mind that they're there and that they know that you're there.
Yes.
Because one of the things when you have a new department or a new role, it's very easy for the established roles and departments to kind of forget that you exist. Not because they want you intentionally forget that you exist, but it's just that, especially when you're providing public service, you're kind of in the trenches every day and you develop these blinders. Not intentionally, it's just part of how the human mind operates. So you have a certain way that you do your job and you come in every day, every week, and you just do it that way, especially if you're getting good results.
Kind of like autopilot.
Precise, perfect example. So you're kind of off a tangent somewhere. And, unless you have a department or an agency that is actively needing extra assistance, and then they may be pulling you in multiple times in the beginning, then you become part of their operational consciousness. But if they're not pulling you in frequently, then you're not in that operational consciousness. So it's up to you to find creative ways of staying in their operational consciousness. So you asked what were some of the groups that I've kind of connected with since. Well, Quarry was one of the first ones that I've reached out to, and I have developed a collaborative sort of working relationship with. In fact, I don't know if she's new, but I didn't meet her before in the beginning, but I have a meeting coming up with their chief operating officer. I think she's new. I'm not 100% sure, but that's part of that active collaboration that I seek. When I just joined, I reached out to Dove. I connected with South Shore YMCA, connected with a number of other, and this is what I say to people all the time. If you know of any kind of community group, large or small, even some of the smaller, more sort of community group, Quincy, I think it's Quincy Climate Action. I don't remember if it was them, but there were a number of those individual community groups that are just comprised of the citizens that I've reached out to, and they've sat and they've met with me. Quincy Votes is what I was thinking of, is one of the groups that I met with. A citywide PTO. These are parents who have come together and try to be a voice for their families and the school space. So if anyone that's listening that can think of any group within the city that I need to meet and connect with, they can certainly feel free to reach out. There are two main ways of connecting. My email address is D as in Damien, OUT as in Tom, AR at quincyma.gov, or they can call my office line at 617-376-1050. Any suggestions, any groups that you think I should be connecting with, feel free to let me know.
Yeah, and all Damien's info will be in the blurb under the podcast. So if you're in the car or maybe you can't take down that information right now, don't worry. We'll have it written out for you as well. So you will be sure to get all of that information. And if you need to contact Damien, it will be there. So Damien, let's say that you're speaking to future community liaisons right now. They're looking to get into a role similar to yours. What are some helpful tips, some ideas that you would tell from being in this role right now? Some advice if anyone is looking, has interests in what you're saying, how to get into this type of role?
You really need to have a heart for people and also be open. There's an expression by someone who I think of as a bit of a mentor. He's actually a trained psychologist, but he became, I don't want to say vlogger, but sort of a motivational speaker. That's the term. He's deceased now, Dr. Dwayne Dyer, and those of you motivational speaker junkies will definitely know who he is. And there's an expression that he always shares. He says, always be open to everything and attached to nothing. And it's something that I remind myself of virtually daily. Having an open mind, and really, as you meet people, you have to do your best to try and not step into that space with preconceived notions. Because until you have met people, which is one of the reasons I really enjoyed doing the in-reaching, because it's very easy to look at statistics and look at data and develop preconceived ideas based on that. As a matter of fact, it's a natural part of how the human mind operates. It tries to short circuit the process, because really getting to know somebody and really understanding who they are takes time. So the brain tries to short circuit that process by having us attach ourselves to these preconceived notions about people and communities. And so one of the advice I would give to such a person, because trust is so important in a role like this, is when you go to meet individuals and to try to get to know them, don't walk in with any preconceived notions, because just let the facts and the circumstance of the situation speak to itself, and then you can sort of draw whatever conclusion you need to draw. But remember what your role is, and that your role is to connect people with services. It's not to make assumptions, it's not to judge. And I remind myself of that every day, which is why it's important that I develop relationships not only with the residents, but with also the various stakeholders within the city, with the various departments, the various agencies, because the nucleus of my role is to ensure that people are getting quality access to the services that the city has to provide. So having an open mind, be willing to learn, have a real heart for people, also have to really know how to prioritize. And relationship building. Those are 5 things that I would say you have to be prepared to engage in those 5 spaces regularly and intentionally.
Yeah, definitely. I'm sure anyone who's listening, Damien would be a great mentor for if you want to get into that type of role. But there really is a lot of different components, as you were just saying, that really resonated with me about how important this role is, that not only you're speaking to the departments, but you're also speaking with the frustrated community members who maybe, like you said, are misinformed, or not understanding, or can't find the information. It's really helpful that you're there and you can direct them to the right information, but also kind of hold their hand along the process, and make sure that they're not alone. It's not like, oh, we're just going to give you a whole bunch of information to sort through and back away, which I'm sure is really helpful for some people who have just hit roadblock after roadblock. You're like, no, I'm going to stay. I'm going to help you until we can solve whatever you're facing at the moment, which must be really fulfilling as a part of your role. So how do you stay informed with what's happening in the public, whether it's about different events that's going on, whether it is different things happening in the city?
Well, must give your show a plug. Because I have subscribed to the Office of Healthy
Yes,
Homes.
as you all should.
And so I hear a lot about what's going on in your world. I'm a subscriber to QATV, so that is a place where, to be quite frank, I start every day with listening to QATV. So I hear a lot of what's happening. Also, the Quincy Sun, that's also a newspaper. So each day, the Quincy Sun is only for once a week, but QATV is one place. The Quincy Sun is another. And also, just, I'm not really a social media junkie, but, this job, I have to have a presence in those spaces because, again, it's not to judge, but it's important that I hear what people are saying.
Of course.
What people are feeling, and just understanding that. Because that's also another important quality to have in this role, is to be able to listen in a way that is, you don't get sucked in to the moment, but just hear from people and sort of listen from their vantage point. It's not a matter of right or wrong in that moment. Now, ultimately, the goal is to inform and to give good information. But as people are stressed and they're processing that stress, leave the desire to inform, put that off, and just exude some empathy as people are processing how they're feeling. So, I maintain a presence in the various social media spaces so I can hear what people have to say. And also just, reaching out to the respective departments and understanding, what events they're having. And I try to show up for those. I know that we've just restarted. I know last year I'd visited several of the Coffee with a Cop, where the Quincy Police have representatives along with the city councilor for that ward, and they pick a particular breakfast place, and they just kind of hang out there for about an hour and a half, and just have an open space where any community member can just come up and ask whatever questions. So I've tried to tag along. Last year I did tag along to those. I know Ward 2 had 2 so far. I haven't been able to make that one yet, but it's my goal to go to as many of them. So just grassroots connection. Whatever is happening throughout the city, I try to avail myself to those. And if I can't make it, I try to find sort of a circle back mechanism where at least I can hear from whoever was there to say, what did I miss? Were there any community concerns? And then I sort of add that to, I'm gathering a database of concerns that people are expressing so I can see, are there trends? Is it highly concentrated in one area versus another? So I'm doing a lot of data collection.
Putting in the work.
Yes.
So looking ahead as we're 1 year into your role to hopefully many more decades, how do you picture and envision your role as community liaison evolving and changing? I guess, where do you see it to be in 5 years, in 10 years, etc.?
Well, where I would like to see it, having concluded this first year, is definitely, step one would be to be prominently visible. And that is something that's only going to come with time. But I'm very pleased that over the course of this year, the level of prominence and visibility thus far. One of the things with roles like this is that don't want to take on too much too quickly, because again, trust is very important. And if you think about just any relationship, personal or professional, if it moves at too fast a clip, there is always that potential for even something as a simple misunderstanding. It could really have not so good consequences. And so the pace at which it has been moving, I think, is perfect pace. But in terms of another several years, I think that having that prominence and having systems and a machinery in place to be able to bring the community closer to its government and to the city functions and services. So in the next 5 years, I would love to see a situation where more and more of the residents being attuned to how their government operates, what's available. Because I can tell you, just meeting people, they don't know the services that are here. There are amazing services here. People just don't know about them. So my goal is to have a sort of a first-class system whereby as people move into the community, onto various communities, there's a mechanism in place where people are informed. Because the information is there. It's just about how do we creatively get that information to people.
Of course.
So it's about being informed and knowing how to utilize the spaces that are already here to afford folks to have the best quality life possible.
Yeah, definitely. So, what is your favorite aspect of this job? I know we've talked a lot about your job and what you do and how you visit. Now we're going to get to the hard question of it all. What would you say is one of your favorite parts?
The favorite part is when a resident can say, thank you for doing this, or thank you, I didn't know this. That's my favorite statement, when someone says, wow, I didn't know that. Thanks for letting me know. Or thanks for helping me make this connection.
Of course.
So when I can see and hear how someone's life has been positively impacted by something that I did, that's the most important part for me.
Yeah.
That's the most fun part for me.
I know. I feel like this whole podcast was created to spread awareness about the programs that we have over here at the Office of Healthy Homes, because not a lot of people are aware of it. You know, that's only a small part, I guess, of what you do, but it seems like you have a great job over there, and I learned a lot on this podcast too, just hearing about what you do and, you know, how you're out and about, how you find your information, all that fun stuff. So we have one last exciting question. We're going to learn a little bit about Damien. You want to share a fun fact about yourself that maybe some people don't know?
Yeah. So I actually played drums.
Ooh.
Yes. I used to play in a band years ago. Haven't
Wow.
played in a while, but
Gotta get the band back together.
I like music.
Yeah.
All types of music. But yes, I'm a musician.
Exciting. Well, you heard it here, folks. So I just have a couple updates from the Office of Healthy Homes. So we did increase our income limits for this new upcoming fiscal year. So, and as always, I will put these in the blurb below. But for one person, we've increased them up to $91,000, and so on until 8-person household, it's up to $171,000. So if you weren't able to be qualified for our past income limits, maybe you are this time as well. We also increased our South Shore Healthy Homes program up to a $30,000 grant with a 5-year forgivable loan, as well as our first-time homebuyer program up to $40,000, 0% interest deferred loan as well. So that's pretty exciting for anyone who's looking applying to any of our programs. Also, we do have an event coming up. We have our Schools Out event by the Bay State Community Services. That is going to be at the Rest a While Community Park. It's across the street from Veterans Stadium, as well as near Central Middle School and on the other end, Pageant Field. So definitely, if you have young children looking for some Kona ice, also to hear about our programs, we will be there. Additionally, myself and Joyce, who you heard earlier on the podcast, we're going to be heading over to some first-time homebuyer workshops. So if you are in a first-time homebuyer workshop, either on Sunday, June 16th, or in the week after, the Saturday at June 22nd, we will be here. And then additionally, we are going to be hanging out at the Kilroy Squares Farmers Market on July 26th. So we're going to be handing out some bags, some goodies. Excited to come and talk to you all. Excited for you to come ask us some questions. And lastly, we will be heading to the NCDA annual conference over in Cambridge, which the annual conference hasn't been in Cambridge in at least 10 years plus, I think. So it's going to be really exciting to hear about what's happening nationally around the country with community development. Well, thank you so much for hopping on the podcast today, Damien.
It was my pleasure to be here.
As a Quincy resident, we're lucky to have you in the community. So without further ado, be sure to subscribe to our podcast, check out our website, add on to our email chain, and we'll see you next month. Have a great rest of your day. Bye.